The world of the alien people was silent and strict. No one smiled, no one cried, and no one showed love. They lived in tall gray towers that touched the dark sky. Their rules were written on every wall. Do not feel, do not care, do not love. To them, emotions were weakness and weakness was death. The alien girl walked through the cold streets. Her steps made no sound on the black stone. Around her, faces were empty. Eyes looked forward without a blink. They all moved like machines following orders. There was no laughter in this world, no warmth, only silence and duty. But deep inside her heart she felt different. She could not understand why she sometimes wanted to smile, why she wanted to hold someone's hand. She never spoke these thoughts aloud, because if anyone found out she would be punished. Still, the questions never left her mind. One day, ships landed at the trade station. They came from the stars. Humans stepped out, strange, soft beings with voices that carried warmth. They laughed when they worked. They shared food with one another. They hugged as if their bodies needed closeness. The alien girl stood hidden behind a pillar, her eyes wide. She had never seen anything like this before. Her people whispered in fear. They said humans were dangerous because they carried the sickness of emotion. They said humans would destroy themselves with love. But the girl was not afraid. Instead, she was curious. Her heart beat fast as she watched a man help another carry heavy boxes. When the second man fell, he did not laugh or turn away. He reached out his hand and lifted him up, and then they both smiled. That smile struck her like lightning. It was small, simple, but it carried more power than all the cold laws of her people. She touched her own lips without thinking, wondering what it would feel like to smile that way. Days passed. The humans stayed to trade and work. The girl kept watching, hiding in the shadows. The human man was different from the rest. His face carried both strength and kindness. He gave his food to children even if it meant he had less. He placed his coat over a worker who shivered in the night. He spoke softly to others and they looked at him with trust. She had never seen trust before. In her world, no one trusted. Everyone feared each other, for emotions could be used against you. Yet here was a man who gave freely without fear. She could not understand it, and that made her heart burn with questions. Her people noticed the humans too. Keep away from them, the leaders warned. Their ways are poison. They will make you weak. They will break our world. The girl nodded in silence. But inside she felt torn. Was it really weakness to care for someone? Or was it something greater? Something her people had lost long ago. One night she could not sleep. The gray sky outside her window looked heavier than ever. She closed her eyes and saw again the image of the man lifting his friend. She saw the smile, the warmth, and the strange glow in his eyes. She whispered to herself, "Why? Why do humans do this?" Her voice trembled in the empty room, but there was no answer, only the echo of her own longing. The next day, she returned to the trade station. This time she did not hide so well. She stood a little closer. The human man turned his head for a moment. His eyes brushed past her. She felt her chest tighten as if she had been caught. But he did not speak. He only gave a small nod. That nod burned in her memory. It was not much, but it felt like a door opening inside her for the first time. She wondered if humans could see through her silence, if they knew she was different, if they knew she wanted to feel what they felt. The cold world around her continued as always. The towers stood tall. The people marched without a sound. But inside the alien girl a storm was growing. It was the storm of curiosity, of hunger, of something she did not yet understand. Her people had lived for centuries without love, but now she had seen it with her own eyes and she could never forget. As she walked back through the streets, she whispered again, "Why do humans risk pain for love?" The question was dangerous, but it would not leave her. It followed her like a shadow. It grew inside her chest like fire, and deep down she knew her life was about to change forever. The alien girl told herself to stay away. She reminded herself of the warnings of her people, but her feet did not listen. Every day she found herself walking to the trade station, hiding behind walls and crates only to watch the strange humans. They were so different from her people. They made noise when they worked. They laughed when something went wrong, and they touched each other without fear. Sometimes they even argued. But at the end of the day, they sat together and shared food. To her people, this was madness, but to her, it was fascinating. Her eyes always searched for one man, the human who gave his coat to others, who smiled even when he was tired. He seemed to shine in a world that was always gray. She told herself it was only curiosity. But her heart knew the truth. She wanted to understand him. One afternoon, the station was quiet. The humans were unloading cargo. The alien girl stepped closer than ever before. She thought she was safe, but suddenly his eyes lifted, and he caught her. For a moment, her breath froze. She wanted to run, but her body would not move. The man tilted his head slightly. His face did not show anger. Instead, he gave a small, gentle smile. That smile made her heart beat like drums. He walked toward her slowly, not to scare her. His steps were calm, his voice, when he finally spoke, was soft. "You've been watching, haven't you?" She could not answer. Her people never spoke to strangers. Her throat felt dry, but she nodded once. Afraid and curious at the same time. "Why?" he asked kindly. Not accusing, only curious. Her lips trembled. She wanted to say she did not know, but the truth slipped out. "You are different." The man's eyes softened. "Different can be good," he said. His tone was warm, as if he truly believed it. The girl's chest ached. No one in her world ever spoke with such warmth. Their words were commands, sharp and cold. But this man's words felt like sunlight touching her skin. They stood in silence for a moment. The girl looked around nervously, afraid someone from her people would see. But the place was empty. Only the sound of ships and distant voices filled the air. "Do you know my name?" the man asked. She shook her head. "It's Daniel," he said with a smile. "What's yours?" Her lips parted, but she hesitated. Her people said never to give a name to an outsider. Yet something inside her pushed her forward. "Lyra," she whispered. Daniel repeated it softly, almost with care. Lyra. The way he said it felt different. As if her name finally carried meaning. She had heard it all her life. But now, for the first time, she liked how it sounded. They talked for a short while. She asked him small questions. Why humans touched each other, why they smiled when tired. Daniel explained in simple words, because we care. Because life is lighter when we share it. Lyra listened with wide eyes. Each answer shook her world. Her people said love was a disease. But his words made it sound like strength. When the voices of others grew louder, she quickly stepped back. Her heart pounded in fear. If anyone saw them, it would mean danger for both, Daniel noticed and gave her a calm look. "It's okay, we don't have to speak long. But you can come back if you want." She left without replying. But her steps were shaky. Her chest felt alive. Her thoughts burned with his words. She wanted to hear more. She wanted to see him again that night. She sat in her small gray room, staring at the ceiling. She replayed the moment again and again. His smile, his gentle tone, his simple truth. Different can be good. Her people would call it weakness. But to her it felt like freedom. The next day she returned. This time she did not hide so well. Daniel noticed her again. He waved slightly. As if greeting an old friend, her heart leaped. She walked closer, step by step. Each step felt like breaking the rules of her entire world. Their meetings became quiet moments stolen from time. Sometimes she asked him about family, and he told her stories of mothers protecting children. Sometimes she asked about love, and he told her it was when two hearts trusted each other more than anything. Each word filled her with both wonder and fear. What if her people found out? What if she was wrong to listen? Yet her soul told her she was finally learning something true, something her people had buried long ago. One evening, when the station was lit by the pale glow of alien moons, Daniel handed her a small piece of bread. For you," he said. She stared at it. Confused, in her world, no one gave food without demand. To share freely was unthinkable. She held it in her hand, her eyes trembling. "Why?" she whispered. He only smiled. "Because you look like you need it." Her throat closed. She wanted to cry, though she did not know how. For the first time in her life, she understood the meaning of kindness. That night, as she walked home, the cold towers of her people looked taller and darker. But inside her, something had begun to grow. It was fragile, small like a spark, but it was real. And she knew she would return again, no matter the risk. Lyra told herself she would stop. She told herself it was too dangerous. Her people would punish her if they found out. They had already begun whispering about her, noticing her changes, but even with fear in her heart, she could not stay away. Every evening her feet carried her to the station, and every evening Daniel was there, waiting with a smile that warmed her in a way no fire ever could. They never spoke for long, But every word he shared pulled her deeper into a world she had never known. One night, as they sat in the shadow of a cargo crate, Lyra asked a question she had held for many days. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Why do humans hold hands?" She remembered seeing Daniel touch another worker's shoulder and even press his palm against a friend's. The memory had stayed with her like a strange song. Daniel smiled gently. "Because it makes us feel close," he said. "It means we are not alone. It means we are connected." Lyra looked down at her own hands. Her people never touched, not even family. To touch was weakness. To touch was to share, and sharing was forbidden. Daniel saw her confusion. He extended his hand slowly, not forcing her. "Here. Try it," he said softly. Her chest tightened. Every part of her screamed that this was wrong. But another part, stronger and louder, told her to reach. Her fingers moved, trembling. She touched his palm and the world shifted. Heat ran through her skin. Her chest ached in a way she had never felt. It was not pain, not exactly. It was something new, something powerful. She gasped and quickly pulled back. Daniel did not laugh. He only said quietly, "That is trust. That is care." The words repeated in her mind. She did not sleep that night. She lay in her bed with her hand against her chest, trying to hold the feeling. The towers outside seemed colder than ever, but inside her, something bright was burning. The next day, her people noticed her distracted face. One elder stopped her on the street, his eyes sharp, his voice heavy. "You have been watching the humans too closely," he warned. "Do not let their sickness touch you. Love is a poison, and those who drink it are lost." Lyra lowered her head and walked away, but the elder's words echoed against Daniel's voice. Which was true? Was love poison, or was it the cure? When she met Daniel again, her question spilled out. "Why do you smile even when you are tired?" she asked. "Why do you give food when you are hungry? Why do you protect others when you are weak?" Daniel listened patiently. His answer was simple. Because life without love is empty. Pain is nothing compared to losing someone you care for. She stared at him. Her world had been built on silence, on cold logic, on fear of weakness. Yet here was a man who called love strength. Curiosity grew like fire inside her. She wanted to know more. She wanted to feel more. She wanted to understand why her chest hurt when Daniel walked away, and why her heart jumped when he smiled. Their secret meetings became more daring. Sometimes they sat near the glowing lights of the station. Sometimes they hid in the shadows of the towers. Lyra asked him about families, and Daniel told her about mothers who carried children on their backs, about fathers who worked to feed them, about siblings who fought but loved each other in the end. Her eyes widened at every story. Her people had families, but no one cared for one another. Children were raised by the state. Parents were separated. There was no bond, no trust. And now she saw what had been stolen from them. One evening, Daniel told her about love between two people. "It is when you give your heart fully to another," he said. "It is when their happiness matters more than your own." Lyra's chest shook. The thought was both terrifying and beautiful. Could such a thing truly exist? Could someone care for her like that? Could she care for someone so much? But fear crept back into her mind. "If my people discover this," she whispered, "they will punish me." "They will punish you." Daniel's eyes were steady. "Then let us be careful." "But never stop learning," he said. She nodded. But deep inside, she knew the danger was growing. Her people already looked at her differently. They saw the spark in her eyes, the hesitation in her voice. They knew something was changing. Still, she could not stop. Her heart demanded answers. Her soul demanded warmth. The forbidden curiosity pulled her again and again into Daniel's world. One night, as the two of them sat under the alien moons, Lyra asked the question that had haunted her since the beginning. "What does it mean to love?" Daniel looked at her quietly, his voice low. "It means you are not alone anymore. It means you find someone who sees you, truly sees you, and accepts you as you are." Lyra's throat tightened. No one had ever seen her, not even her own people. She was always a shadow in the crowd. But Daniel's eyes told her he saw her. She could not breathe for a moment. Her heart whispered a truth she did not want to hear. She was falling for him. She turned her face away, afraid of her own feelings. Her people had never loved, but now she understood why humans risked everything for it. And though it was forbidden, though it was dangerous, she could not stop herself from stepping closer to the fire. The whispers in the gray towers were growing louder. Elders with sharp eyes had begun watching Lyra. Her steps felt heavier each day as she walked through the streets. The people around her moved as silent machines, cold and empty. But she was no longer the same. She knew it, and they knew it too, one morning. As she carried out her duties in the learning hall, a senior figure stopped her. His voice was hard as stone. "You smile too often, your silence is breaking. Are the humans teaching you their sickness?" Lyra lowered her eyes quickly, fear rushing through her body. "No," she whispered, though her trembling voice betrayed her. That night she ran to the station again. Her heart needed Daniel's words to breathe when she saw him waiting. The fear melted for a moment. He noticed her pale face, his brow tightening with worry. "What happened?" he asked softly. "They are watching me," she said, her voice shaking. "They say humans are poison. They know I am changing." Daniel's eyes were steady, calm like deep water. "You are not changing into something bad. You are only learning what your people have forgotten." Lyra looked at him with wide eyes. "But if they catch us, they will punish you. Maybe worse." Her chest hurt with the thought. The risk was not hers alone anymore. It was his too. Daniel stepped closer, his voice firm but kind. "Some things are worth the risk, Lyra. Some things are bigger than fear." The words struck her heart. She wanted to believe, but the fear of her people's law pulled at her like chains. The next day, she walked through the halls of her tower with caution. Every eye felt like a blade when two elders whispered behind her. She caught a fragment of their words. "Contaminated. Dangerous, must be corrected." Her blood went cold. That evening she hurried to Daniel. He saw the terror in her eyes before she spoke. "They will come for me soon," she whispered. "They will not let this continue." Daniel frowned. "Then you must be careful. No more meeting openly." "But I cannot stop," she said quickly. "I need to understand, I need to feel this." Her voice cracked. She realized then that she was no longer curious only. She was desperate. Her soul could no longer live in silence. Daniel placed his hand over his chest. "Lyra, sometimes you must choose between obeying the world and obeying your heart. Which one will you follow?" His words made her shake. No one had ever asked her to choose before. Her people only gave commands and she only obeyed, but now, the idea of choosing burned inside her. The next few days were a storm. Her people assigned her longer hours, keeping her under constant eyes. Yet still she found ways to slip away. Still she found Daniel. Each meeting carried heavier danger. Every step toward him could be the step that exposed them. One night, a patrol walked near the station as they spoke. The sound of heavy boots made Lyra's heart stop. She pressed against the shadows. Daniel placed himself between her and the light. His body shielding hers, her chest burned with fear, but also with something stronger. She realized he risked himself for her. When the patrol passed, she whispered in disbelief. "Why would you do that?" He looked at her as if the answer was simple. "Because I care for you." The words left her trembling. No one had ever said such a thing to her. Caring was weakness. Caring was forbidden, yet in that moment it felt stronger than any wall her people had built. Still, the risk was growing. Her people began asking her direct questions. "What have you seen with the humans? What have you learned from them?" She lied with a straight face, but the weight of the lies pressed heavy on her heart. That night she told Daniel through shaking breath, "They will not stop, they will not rest until they break me. What if I destroy you too?" Daniel placed his hand gently on her shoulder. She froze at the touch but did not pull away this time. "Lyra, you are not destroying me, you are giving me hope." Her eyes filled with a heat she did not understand. She whispered, "Hope feels dangerous." Daniel smiled faintly. "Hope always is." As the days went on, every meeting felt sharper. The risk was not only of being discovered, but of what she was becoming. She smiled when she saw him. She felt pain when he left. These emotions were dangerous in her world, but she could no longer kill them. They were alive inside her. One evening, after a long silence, she whispered, "If my people force me to choose, I do not know what I will do." Daniel looked at her firmly. "You already know, you feel it here." He pointed gently at her heart. Her throat tightened. She wanted to deny it, but the truth was clear. She had already chosen, she only feared to admit it. That night, as she walked home, the gray towers looked taller, the faces of her people colder, yet inside her chest, she carried something stronger than fear. The risk was great, but so was the fire that now lived in her. She whispered into the night, I cannot go back. Her steps echoed on the stone. Her eyes burned with tears she had never cried before. The risk had become her life now, and there was no turning away. The storm came without warning. The alien sky turned black. Thunder rolled across the towers, and the cold rain fell like knives. Lyra had just left her duties when the storm struck. The streets emptied fast. Her people ran into their shelters, silent and efficient, but she was far from home, and the rain hit her harder with each step. Her thin clothes clung to her skin. Her legs shook as the icy water filled the streets. She tried to run, but a loose stone caught her foot, and she fell to the ground. Pain tore through her ankle. She gasped, unable to rise. The storm roared above her. Then, through the wall of rain, she saw a figure running toward her. At first she thought it was one of her own, but no. He moved differently. Faster, warmer. It was Daniel. His coat was already soaked. But he did not care. He knelt beside her, his hand steady on her shoulders. Lyra, are you hurt? He asked quickly. She tried to push him away, fear pressing in. You should not be here. They will see, she whispered. But Daniel ignored her protest. His eyes scanned her ankle. Swollen and twisted, he lifted her gently, his arms strong and careful. No, I can walk, she tried to argue, but her body betrayed her. Pain shooting with every movement, he only shook his head. You don't need to. The warmth of his arms cut through the freezing rain. Lyra clung to him without meaning to. Her heart pounded. She had never been carried before, never been held. His chest rose and fell against her cheek, strong and alive. Each step he took through the storm felt like safety itself. He found shelter beneath a half-collapsed canopy. The rain poured around them, but here at least they could breathe. He set her down gently, his coat around her shoulders. She stared at him, water dripping down his face. His eyes held no fear, only concern. Why? She whispered, her voice barely audible. Why risk yourself for me? Daniel looked at her as if the answer was simple. Because you matter. Her breath caught. No one had ever said such words to her, not once in her life. She shivered, not from the rain, but from the fire that burned inside her chest. Then he did something that broke every rule of her people. He reached for her hand. His palm was rough, warm, and steady. Her fingers trembled, but this time she did not pull away. The moment their skin touched, Lyra felt the storm disappear. The cold, the fear, the pain, it all faded, replaced by something overwhelming. Her chest ached with a strange sweetness, her eyes widened. She had never known that simple touch could hold so much power. Her lips parted, words stumbling out. This is dangerous. Daniel shook his head. No, Lyra, this is life. This is what they took from you. Tears she never thought she had burned at the edge of her eyes. She turned her face away, afraid he would see. But the warmth of his hand remained strong and gentle. For a long time, they sat in silence. The storm raged around them. But inside their small shelter, it felt like another world. Lyra stared at their joined hands. She remembered every warning from her people. Love is poison. Touch is weakness. Caring will destroy you. But here with Daniel, it felt like the opposite. It felt like strength. When the storm softened into rain, Daniel finally helped her stand, his hand steady on her arm. She limped, but with him at her side, she felt unafraid. Together they walked through the empty streets, shadows of the gray towers towering over them. At the edge of her block, she stopped. You must leave, she whispered, fear flooding her again. If they see you with me? Daniel nodded. His hand released hers slowly, almost unwilling. His eyes met hers. Then be safe, Lyra, and remember you are not alone. Her throat tightened. She wanted to answer, to say something more, but her people's eyes felt heavy all around. She slipped into the shadows, leaving him behind. But as she walked into her cold tower, her hand still burned with the memory of his touch. That night she could not sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment over and over. The warmth of his hand, the strength of his arms, the words, you matter. Her chest rose and fell with emotions too big to name. For the first time in her life, she wished to dream. She wished to see a world where such warmth was not forbidden. She pressed her hand against her heart and whispered into the silence. If this is weakness, then I want to be weak forever. Her words would have been a crime if spoken aloud, but in that dark room they became her truth. The cold world she had once known was already breaking. The first touch had changed everything, and she knew deep inside there was no turning back now. The warmth of Daniel's hand still lingered in Lyra's memory, but the cold eyes of her people soon returned to haunt her. In the following days, She noticed more patrols around the towers. More questions whispered in dark corners. The elders were restless, and their voices spread through the streets like thunder before a storm. Someone is breaking the rules, they said. Someone has let the poison of humans enter their heart. Lyra kept her head low, but she knew the whispers were about her. She tried to walk the same, speak the same, act as if nothing inside her had changed. But the fire in her chest betrayed her every step. One evening, after leaving her duties, she hurried toward the trade station. Her heart longed for Daniel's voice. His steady eyes, she slipped through the shadows. Careful and quick, but when she reached the station, she froze. Daniel was not alone. He was surrounded by guards from her people. Their tall frames stood rigid, their eyes sharp as blades. Daniel's hands were tied. His face calm but bruised. "Daniel," she gasped, the word escaping her lips before she could stop it. The guards turned. Their leader narrowed his eyes. "So it is you," he said coldly. "The one who let the sickness inside?" Lyra's blood turned to ice. Her heart pounded so loudly she thought they could hear it. She tried to step back, but strong hands grabbed her arms, dragging her forward. The leader's voice echoed through the hall. "You are guilty of betrayal. You have learned their ways. You have let the poison of love touch you." "No," she tried to cry, but her voice shook. "I only wanted to understand." "That is worse," the leader snapped. "To understand their weakness is to carry it. You are corrupted." Daniel's eyes locked with hers, steady even in chains. "Lyra, don't be afraid," he said. His voice was calm. Stronger than the room of enemies. Silence. The guard struck him across the face. The sound cracked like thunder. Lyra's chest burned with rage and fear. She wanted to scream, to fight, but her body was held too tightly. The leader turned to the crowd that had gathered. Their faces were pale and empty, just as always. "This human will be executed for spreading his poison," he declared. "And this girl will be corrected." The words stabbed into her like knives. Corrected in her world. That word meant chains, darkness, and silence forever. It meant they would take everything from her. Her voice, her mind, her soul. "No," she whispered, but no one listened. Her people only obeyed. Their eyes showed no pity, no mercy. They looked at her as if she were already gone. The guards dragged Daniel away, his gaze never leaving hers. His lips moved with one last message, though she could not hear the words. She knew what he said. Be strong. That night, locked in her room, Lyra trembled. Her people had betrayed her. They had betrayed her curiosity, her feelings, her heart. She pressed her forehead against the cold wall, her chest aching with a pain too heavy to carry. For hours she tried to kill the fire inside her. She tried to convince herself that her people were right, that love was weakness, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw Daniel smile, his steady hand, his voice telling her she mattered. Tears slid down her cheeks, the first real tears of her life. In the silence of her room, she whispered, "They call it poison, but it is truth. They call it weakness, but it is strength." The next day, the elders gathered the people in the central square. Daniel was brought forward. Still in chains, his face carried bruises, but his eyes burned with defiance. He stood tall, even as they forced him to his knees. Lyra was dragged beside him. The leader's voice rang out, "See what happens when you touch the sickness of humans. This is what love does. It makes you weak. It destroys our laws." The crowd was silent, emotionless as ever, but Lyra's heart screamed. She could not let Daniel die. Not for her, not for what they had shared. Her voice broke the silence. "No," she cried. Her people turned, their empty eyes narrowing, but she did not stop. Her chest shook, her throat burned. "Love is not poison. Love is life." The words fell like fire on dry grass. The crowd shifted uneasily, whispers broke out. The leader's face twisted in anger. "Silence her," he shouted, but the spark had already spread. For the first time in generations, her people looked at one another with doubt. The chains of silence cracked. Lyra turned her head toward Daniel, her voice softer now, trembling but certain. "I will not let them take you. I will not let them destroy what I found with you." Daniel's eyes met hers, and even in chains, even facing death, he smiled. That smile was stronger than the whole square of enemies. At that moment, Lyra realized the truth. Love was not weakness. Love was rebellion. Love was power. And she knew she would fight for it, even if it meant her life. The square was silent, the air heavy with fear. The alien people stood in rows, their faces blank as stone. Their leader raised his hand, ready to give the order that would end Daniel's life. Lyra's heart pounded so loudly it drowned every other sound. She looked at Daniel on his knees, his chains cutting into his wrists. His body was bruised, yet his eyes still burned with strength. He looked at her, not with fear, not with regret, but with trust. In that moment, Lyra knew the choice was hers alone. The leader's voice thundered across the square. "This human is guilty. He spread weakness among us. He brought the poison of love. He will be executed." "No." Lyra's voice cut through the silence. Her body shook, but her words carried fire. "Love is not poison. Love is strength." Gasps filled the square. The crowd stirred uneasily for the first time in centuries. Their silence cracked. Whispers spread like wildfire. Some looked at each other with doubt, others with fear. The leader's eyes blazed with fury. "Silence her!" he roared. 2 guards stepped forward, but Lyra did not move back. Her voice grew stronger. "You call me weak? But I am stronger than all of you. I have felt what you are too afraid to feel." She turned toward the crowd, her hands shaking. "You live in chains, you think you are safe, but you are already dead inside." The guards reached for her arms, but Daniel suddenly lunged, even in chains. His body struck one guard, sending him stumbling. The other raised his weapon, but Lyra threw herself in the way. Her scream echoed through the square. "If he dies, I die too." The square froze. The weapon lowered in hesitation. The crowd murmured louder now. Their leader shouted again, "She is corrupted. She is nothing." Daniel's voice rose over the chaos, deep and steady. "She is more alive than all of you." His eyes locked with Lyra's. "Because she chose love." The words hit like thunder. The crowd shifted again, some breaking their silence with tears they didn't understand. Others stepped back, confused. The leader raised his hand again, ready to strike them both down. But before he could speak, one elder's voice trembled. Perhaps we were wrong." The words cracked through the crowd. Then another voice followed. "Why should we fear love?" The silence of the people shattered. Murmurs became cries. Faces once blank began to twist with emotion. Some wept, some clutched their chests, some even reached for the hands beside them. For the first time in their history, the people felt. The leader roared in rage. "No, this is weakness. This is death." But his voice was drowned by the rising voices of the crowd. Lyra stepped forward, her chest burning with fire. "You call it weakness, but I have never been stronger. I will not live in your silence anymore. I choose love." Her words shook the air. Daniel's chains were struck by hesitant hands. A worker from the crowd stepped forward. Breaking the locks with trembling tools, Daniel rose, his hands free at last. He moved to Lyra's side, his arm steady around her. The sight of them together, human and alien, ignited something the leader could not stop. The crowd surged, no longer silent. Their voices rose in anger against the old rules. Some guards threw down their weapons, others backed away in fear. The leader's power crumbled before their eyes. Daniel looked at Lyra, his voice low but filled with pride. "You did this. You showed them." Her chest shook with both fear and hope. "We did this," she whispered. "Together." The leader tried one last time, his voice breaking. "You will destroy us all," Lyra faced him, her voice clear. "No, we will save ourselves. We will live again." The people roared with emotion, anger, grief, hope, all the feelings they had buried for generations. The leader was dragged away by his own guards, powerless against the tide of change. In the middle of the storm, Lyra turned to Daniel. Her hand found his, trembling but firm. The warmth of his touch reminded her of the storm shelter, of the first time she had felt alive. Her voice broke as she whispered, "I was afraid. But I am not afraid anymore." Daniel smiled, his eyes soft but strong. "You are braver than anyone I have ever known." As the moons rose above the towers, the gray city no longer looked the same. It was no longer silent. Laughter, cries, and voices filled the air for the first time in centuries. Families embraced, strangers held hands, children clung to their mothers and fathers. The fire had spread, unstoppable, and in the center of it all stood Lyra and Daniel, 2 souls from different worlds. Their love had been forbidden, but now it had become the spark that lit a new dawn. Lyra looked at Daniel, her chest rising with a hope she had never dared to feel. "They said love was weakness," she whispered. "But it changed everything." Daniel squeezed her hand, his voice steady. "Because love is the strongest thing in the universe." The people around them cheered. their voices rising like thunder. For the first time in their history, they chose life over silence, love over fear, and it began with one alien girl and one human man